Kimi K3 costs 70% less per token than Claude Fable 5. Output tokens run $50 per million for Claude and 15 for Kimi, but Claude is up to 4 times faster on coding tasks. And that speed gap might matter more than the price difference. Both models dropped recently and people are picking sides without good data. So I'm running Claude Fable 5 against Kimi K3 across 5 real tests, pulling from official docs, pricing pages, and third-party speed benchmarks. No vendor spin every claim pinned to a public source. The final score is honestly not what I expected. One model wins on speed, the other wins on cost, and 3 tests just ran out of data, so which one actually fits your workflow might surprise you. All right, so this comparison is for anyone running high-volume API calls, building agents, or just trying to pick the right model without blowing their budget. Because at scale, a 70% price gap compounds really fast, and if you're waiting on a model to reason through complex code, a 4 times speed difference is the gap between shipping and sitting there waiting. Test 1. Context window and long documents. You know that feeling when you paste a huge code base or a long PDF into a model and it starts forgetting things halfway through? That's a context window problem. And if you hit an output cap mid-generation, your pipeline breaks and you're paying for a truncated response that's completely useless. I pulled the published specs and both models land at 1 million tokens of context, which is the same. What surprised me is the output side. Claude Fable 5 publishes a 128,000 output token limit, so you know exactly what you're getting. But Kimi K3's output limit just isn't published anywhere, which is a real blind spot if you're planning a pipeline around it. Now, I want to be honest about something before we call this. The context window size is genuinely equal, 1 million tokens each, and both charge flat per token rates with no long context surcharge. So the gap is really just about output transparency and not raw capability. And if Kimi's output limit turns out to be similar, this test looks a lot more even than it does right now. So this one's a tie on raw context size, 1 million tokens each. I was expecting Claude to pull ahead on output capacity since it publishes 128,000. But Kimi just doesn't show its cards there, so we can't score it, which means Claude Fable 5 at 0 wins, Kimi K3 at 0 wins, 1 tie. Test 2, reasoning speed and latency. If you're running an agent loop and every step costs you 2 minutes of wait time, that's a real cost in iteration speed and in compute time for anything running on a timer. And slow time to first token on complex reasoning tasks can make a workflow feel completely broken even when the output quality is fine. What surprised me here is how wide the gap is. I was expecting maybe a modest speed edge for one side, but the data from artificial analysis and the new stack puts Claude Fable 5 at 63.4 tokens per second, and Kimi K3 is up to 4 times slower on a coding task, which is pretty significant. And time to first token for Claude on complex reasoning is around 109 seconds, with Kimi slower than that and no exact figure published. Claude Fable 5 takes this one. I was expecting Kimi to be competitive on speed since it's a newer challenger model. But 63.4 tokens per second versus up to 4 times slower is a pretty clear result. So Claude wins on raw throughput and latency, putting us at Claude Fable 5-1, when Kimi K3 0 wins, 1 test still tied. Test 3, multilingual support. If you're building something for users in languages other than English and the model degrades in quality, you don't find out until a user complains or a translation goes wrong in production. And that's a really painful failure mode because it's hard to catch in testing and expensive to fix after launch. Honestly, I looked at this one pretty hard and there's just no published benchmark data for either model on multilingual quality. Both Claude Fable 5 and Kimi K3 say they support multiple languages in their docs, but neither side has put out numbers you can actually compare. So I'm calling it unverified for both. Another tie, but not the good kind. I was expecting at least one side to have some third-party multilingual eval, and neither does. So it's a tie by default and not by performance. And the score stays at Claude Fable 5-1 win, Kimi K3 0 wins, now 2 tests tied. Test 4, pricing and cost efficiency. Run 1 million API calls a month and pick the wrong model and you could be paying 3 times more than you need to. Token costs compound fast at scale, and if your prompt caching hits a lot, the per cache price starts to matter just as much as the base rate. So I pulled both pricing pages and the numbers are pretty stark. Claude Fable 5 is $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens. Kimi K3 is $3 input and $50 output, which is a 70% discount on both sides. And prompt caching hits at $1 per million for Claude versus 30 cents for Kimi, so 3 times cheaper on cache. Kimi K3 wins this one, and it's not close. I was expecting a gap, but $50 versus 15 per million output tokens is a bigger spread than I thought going in, so Kimi is just way cheaper across the board, and that ties things up. Claude Fable 5-1 win, Kimi K3 1 win, 2 tests tied. Test 5, creative writing quality. If you're using a model to draft content, marketing copy, or any kind of narrative text, and the output is flat or repetitive, you end up spending more time editing than you saved generating. And bad creative output can make your product look worse if it ships without heavy review. Okay, so I looked for creative writing benchmarks for both models, And there's nothing published for either one. No third-party eval, no model car data, nothing you can actually compare side by side. So I can't tell you which one writes better without real data. And honestly, take it with a grain of salt if anyone claims otherwise without a source. Another tie by default. I was honestly expecting Claude to have some edge here given Anthropic's focus on writing quality, but there's no data to back that up right now. So it stays even. Final scoreboard is Claude Fable 5 1 win, Kimi K3 1 win, 3 tests tied, which is a closer result than most people would guess going in. Claude Fable 5 wins on speed, plain and simple. It runs at 63.4 tokens per second, up to 4 times faster than Kimi K3 on coding tasks. It publishes a 128,000 output token limit, so you know exactly what your pipeline can expect. And the 1 million token context window works across all Claude models with no opt-in or special setup required. Kimi K3 wins on cost, and it's not even close. Input tokens are 70% cheaper than Claude Fable 5, $3 versus 10 per million. Output is $15 per million versus 50, and prompt caching hits at 30 cents per million, which is 3 times cheaper than Claude's $1 rate. So for high volume workloads, that difference adds up really, really fast. Honestly, I was expecting one model to pull ahead overall, but this is a genuine split. If you need raw speed and clear output limits for complex reasoning or agent workflows, go with Claude Fable 5, 63.4 tokens per second is the number that matters there. If you're running high volume token work and cost is the constraint, Kimi K3 at $15 per million output tokens is the obvious pick.